Okay, folks, welcome back to Battle for Azeroth. Wanted to do a state of for Assassination Rogue. Going to do this a little bit different. Going to do this at 115. I just hit 115. So that way, later on, if I decide to make another video, as I did with Shaman, I have a little more of a perspective, a little more to talk about. So that, and I kind of wanted to play more Outlaws. So before I lost my thoughts, as it were, I've played Assassination up till this point. It's not a complicated Spinnex, so I feel like I can give I feel like I've played it enough to give my experience, my tips, as it were. I picked Assassination. I was going to play, I probably would have played as Outlaw. However, I got my hidden artifact appearance for Assassination. I know, right? I farmed it and farmed it and farmed it in Legion. And yeah, as soon as somewhat of a spur of the moment thing, I had went down to the sewers of Dalaran and I had just logged out there, and it had a really low drop chance, like a single digit percentage drop chance. And sure enough, just logged in. Was like, what, what the hell? Why not? And few rare kills, and I think it was like my third rare kill. It dropped off the one that it had the highest percent chance to drop, which again is like single digit percentage. So I said, okay, that's fine. That's fine. We'll do some battlegrounds and unlock the PvP appearance, and then kind of go from there. So, yeah. So, and I do want to say, bear with me here, because when I started playing Rogue, when I made this character, I played Subtlety. This was back when we actually had talent trees. So that was a while ago. And then in Warlords, I didn't really do much with her. Mainly just leveled her for her professions. I figure, why go to the auction house and buy something when you can make it yourself? So that was pretty much it. I pretty much just leveled her just to you do things with her professions, and then that was pretty much it. And then in Warlords, when they changed combat to Outlaw, then I kind of got back into it a little more. And then towards the end of Legion was probably the most I played her, because I wanted the transmog that she's wearing now, and that was an LFR. And LFR stuff, you can go back and do LFR raids after the expansion. It's just a little harder, and it's like sectioned off. You don't get, I find it easier if you can queue and go in with a random group. It's just, I think it's easier to go in and queue with a random group. So, yeah. And then I figured, well, from what I had seen so far, rogues have been seeming overpowered, as it were. So most of the time that I have gotten killed out in the world has been because of a rogue. So, yeah. I said, oh, okay. Why not? try to do some. I wanted to do more world PvP and stuff, and it just wasn't going all that well on my shaman. So I don't typically PvP on my shaman, which is really weird considering that it's my favorite class in the game. I just don't. I don't really have an explanation. I just don't. I've always played other classes. The classes, it's PvP is kind of weird because the classes that I tend to play more in PvP are classes that I don't particularly like to play in PvE, and vice versa. So I don't know if there's logic there or not. I digress. So I said all that to say I'm not entirely familiar with Assassination like I have been with some of the other specs I've made videos for, so bear with me. As I said, detailed things aren't always my quota. So as far as I can tell, I mean, we're not really missing anything. We've got, it's the only, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the only one of the three that actually has poisons now. Or still, I should say. Yes. I think they took poisons away because this little icon over here on the bar never moved. It just, nothing opened when you hit it. So, yeah. They took them away, they brought them back. They're the same poisons that they were before, as far as I can tell. Deadly poison, wound poison, and crippling poison. Nothing seemed unfamiliar. We did lose, what was it, reciprocate, the heal over time. To be fair, that's been gone for a while now. I think they took that away either in Warlords or Legion. So, which I actually tend to prefer that over Crimson Vial. Yeah, Crimson Vial's not bad. I just would prefer to have. I end up with combo points, and I don't know what to spend them on. With a finishing move, there's not usually a cooldown. It's just a matter of do you have the combo points. So, yeah. Or I wish there was a way to like glyph this into using combo points or something to that effect. Yeah, so other than that, I think all three specs when I started playing had Shadow Step. Or Assassin and Subtlety had Shadow Step. I was starting to think this was, for some reason I was thinking that this was in the talent tree. Like midway lower down. I don't think it was. I think it was just a baseline spell back in the day, as it were. So, yeah. So if we look at the talents, now most of these are, as far as I can tell, and I have used a lot of these abilities over time. They haven't, like any other class, they really haven't changed things per se. They've made tweaks with the we'll say minor changes they've made to the classes. However, that's it. So, as far as I can tell, these talents are pretty good together. Like I said, we lost all three specs. As far as I can remember, none of them got their artifact ability. No, I don't think they did. Very few classes did. It's very strange how they decided on that. So I went, since we got poisons back, which is a side note, they do last. If you go into an instance, they will last in the instance. If you phase out of the instance, you have to reapply them, which I find very annoying because I keep forgetting to apply them when I enter or leave something. And then I end up in combat and my abilities aren't working because I have no active poisons. So, since we have poisons, and deadly poison was always fairly good. That's your lethal poison. Crippling poison is your non-lethal poison. It slows movement speed. Deadly poison deals damage. And then subsequent applications do direct damage. So, yeah. So I went with Master Poisoner. Increases damage of your weapon poisons by 30% and their non-damage effects by 20%. Your finishing moves grant 10% increased damage done for 4 seconds. You could probably take this. Now that I've played with this more, since this doesn't have a cooldown, you can probably keep this up pretty consistently. The thing about it was trying to keep it only lasts for 4 seconds, so to me it was like a coordination thing. I'm not coordinated with certain spells, and that was when I saw it, I said, well, this works all the time. And your poisons are going to be Envenom, uses your poisons. This won't work if you don't have poisons. Rapture will also apply your poisons, I believe, if I remember correctly. Pretty sure everything applies deadly poison. Yes, coat your weapons. Yes, it does. Okay. But not everything applies. It says it does, but not everything I've noticing has applied crippling poison for some reason. I don't know why. Fan of Knives doesn't. Rapture doesn't. I don't know if it's a bug or if I've missed something. Envenom does, and that's pretty much. I'm trying to think. Envenom does, and I don't think Kidney Shot does. So, it's supposed to. It says it's supposed to. You would think it would, but as I said, I've been noticing it doesn't. So, yeah. So for me, this was just more kind of a coordination thing. As odd as that may sound, in my mind, I try to think of, I try to put the ability in a hypothetical scenario. If I'm questing, if I'm doing battlegrounds, is this going to be helpful? And yeah, dungeons, what have you. And then blade side, I tend not to, as I've said so often, I tend to lean towards the passive abilities. I don't really think you need anything else. I don't have trouble generating combo points. This was the thing I didn't like about Assassination before, was that Mutilate costs 50 energy. Now I have 170 because of Vigor and something else, apparently. Yeah. It would cost half your energy. It does award 2 combo points, but it would cost half your energy. So you couldn't really spam it to get full use of your combo points. Because you you want to try to use your combo points with as much, or your finishing moves with as many combo points as possible. So I try to use them with no fewer than 5. Sometimes it doesn't always happen. But yeah, I don't seem to notice the same trouble as long as your haste is with the. I think the stats squish actually benefited Rogue, because with the stats squish, as long as your haste is at a decent amount. When I started, everything was about at 22%. As I've replaced gear, I've lost some health, or some haste, excuse me, as you can see. Before I dinged, when I was 114, this was about 14%, and I was starting to notice that I was getting back into it. I wasn't having to wait as much on abilities. So I'm thinking between 15 and 20% is a good kind of target to shoot for. I was surprised. Critical strike's been up to like 20, the higher 20% doesn't seem to make a difference. Mastery, I'm sure, does, because it increases the damage of your poisons and bleeds. Versatility, I've noticed very few difference with. I have versatility because of my trinkets. And I changed these out at the same time, so if there was a difference, I would have noticed. And then Leech was on the ring upgraded. So actually, I haven't played that much with Leech. I have with leeching poison, which I will get to as we work our way down. Haven't really noticed a big difference with Leech. The two things I've noticed I've done the best damage with is when my haste was higher. The higher haste I have, the better I've done, which makes sense because it increases your energy regeneration. And my agility. A couple of my increases movement speed by 10% for. No, I think it was just the trinkets. Yeah, your primary stat. There we go. Yeah. So normally it's an ability that's on my armor, but both trinkets increase my primary stat. And my primary stat is agility. Or it's been increasing agility. My actual higher stat is stamina. But I have noticed when they proc, I tend to do like more burst damage, kind of. So yeah, this has agility and stamina. Agility. So yeah, so there's not really much you can do to increase agility, I suppose, unless you have something with like a prismatic socket. So I'm trying to focus on getting my haste up again, just to see if that makes a difference. So I kind of thought critical strike would. That's why I said critical strike's kind of a weird stat, but I digress. So I hadn't really noticed a problem with combo points. And if you can use this 3 times, which I have enough energy to use it 3 times without having to wait for it to regenerate, you can use a finishing move. So I haven't really had any trouble with combo points. So, and then with only awarding one, you either have to use this again. You know, the thing that I've been liking with Mutilate is it does award 2. So you, like I said, you use it 3 times, you can use a finishing move. You don't have to. Like I said, it's not a simple. It's not a complicated spec to play. So, or if you use Fan of Knives, I think this actually awards 1 combo point per target hit. I think because I end up filling my combo points up when I use this. So, which is why I took Crimson Tempest, which I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah, so this is Master Poisoner's been working fine. Master Assassin, while stealth is active, and for 3 seconds after breaking stealth, your critical strike chance is increased by 50%. So this was the, a tier, for example. I've used all 3 of these. Normally, I use Subterfuge. I do seem to remember you used to have another ability besides Groat. So with Subterfuge, it would keep your abilities to require stealth can be used 3 seconds after. So it gave you a chance to use another ability before stealth broke. So that's why I took it most of the time. Night Stalker, I do tend to spend a good amount of time stealth. I thought the critical strike chance would be better. And I think it is. I use Groat most of the time. I've rarely ever used Cheap Shot, even in PvP. Because Groat silences for 3 seconds. It silences for 4 seconds. So this silences and does damage and awards combo points. So, and then all of that, I usually get about 1, maybe 2 mutilates off, and then kidney shots. So you're doing another 4 to 6 seconds stun. And if all else fails, you have blind. So, yeah, it seems to work well. I've looked at these again, just, I've thought about trying to increase my, that's why I took Longstrider. Kind of trying to play around and boost my my movement speed while I was stealth. I just don't think it's worth losing the critical strike. It works both. It has 50% chance while you're in and out of stealth. So, and Subterfuge is really no point since you only have 1 ability, unless you want a Cheap Shot and then Groat. Deals 80% increased damage and have no cooldown when used from stealth, and 3 seconds after breaking stealth. I don't know that I really see a point to it. In a normal, keeping in mind I'm not max level yet, in a normal battleground, I'll say I tend to decent damage. So if I was worried about my damage, I would think this would be this might be better. Yeah, I think these two work well together because Grode is also applying your poison. Don't forget. So yeah. So I think your poisons can critical strike. I think everything can critical strike. So those details I'm not entirely sure of. I have looked at things a few times, and it just seems like I've seen a benefit from it. So, yeah. So my legendary ring gave me vigor, which increases my energy by 50% and energy regeneration by 10%. I thought it deactivated at level 15 or below, so it will after this level. Deeper stratagem. Yes. Similar to the monk ability that increases their chi. You have 6 combo points. Your finishing moves now consume 6 combo points, and your finishing moves deal 5% increased damage. So a lot of rogues take marked for death, or they used to. I haven't seen it so much now. Occasionally, like I said, on my shaman, I will be out doing a world quest or something, and I have noticed a rogue or two will use this. I would prefer to have more combo points. The difference is pretty big just with that one extra combo point. So yeah. Although, when my legendary ring, deactivates, I'll kind of have to come back here and reassess. I don't always use 6 combo points. So I could see taking vigor. The energy regeneration, even at 10%, is still worthwhile. Yeah. I don't know that the 5% increased damage would be enough to justify. I mean, they're both good talents. This is one of those they put kind of two good talents on one tier, as it were. Marked for death, again, it's just one of those coordination things. That, and then I would get too self-reliant on it, and then the cooldown would throw me, and yeah. And like I said, I don't have any trouble generating combo points, so I use kidney shot. That usually stuns them for a few seconds, so I have time to build up more and kind of keep the momentum, keep the pressure going, as it were. So yeah, so either one of these two, I I'm thinking I'd probably switch over to Vigor. Since Mutilate costs 50 energy, I mean, that's a free, that's another a Mutilate. Mutilate. Yes. Yeah. Cheat Death. Used this before. Tried out Leeching Poison. Cheat Death works pretty much as you would remember, very similar to the Shaman ability, and I think there's like one or two other specs that have a similar ability. So a fatal attack, instead of killing you, reduces your health to a percentage, and then you take reduced damage after that. So exclusiveness. I've tried this. I just don't like it. The duration is too short for me. To have to constantly keep. I've even moved this so it was in my rotation, and I just don't like it. I know they had some different. Cheat Death used to be higher up. It used to be like where Night Stalker or Vigor was. So they had different things here. So I took it because I didn't know what to take, and I said, well, let's experiment. Maybe I've been doing something wrong, or I haven't. I've been making things more difficult on myself than I needed to. And yeah, the faint. It only lasts for 5 seconds, and it's just too short on a 15-second cooldown. It's just the actual duration's too long. The cooldown's too long. I can't coordinate myself to use it. I thought, well, if I thought, well, maybe if I buff it up so it works a little more like evasion, since evasion has a 2-minute cooldown. No. So Cheat Death works fine. Tried Leeching Poison. Now, they changed this. It's a passive now. It used to actually be a poison. You could use it in place of Crippling Poison. It now just gives you 12% Leech, which is why I said I've tried Leech. I've noticed I'm kind of at a point now where I do seem to take a little more damage. So I said, well, if, Leech, as a tank, I'm thinking, Leech seems to work well. It seems to work well if you're getting healed. Returns a portion of your damage and healing to you. I was disappointed with, I've consistently done pretty decent DPS. I can definitely say, it seemed like rogues were overpowered and just a tad, and I can definitely say I think they are. So I've had very few issues trying to DPS anything down. Occasionally you will come across a rare or something that just has kind of a weird ability. Other than that, though, very few problems. So I thought, well, I don't really do burst damage per se, but I, do a fair amount of damage. And with the finishing moves and everything, things doing direct damage, things doing overtime damage, I thought, well, this could be really good. And I really didn't notice a difference. So I think I get more of a benefit from Cheat Death than Leeching Poison. I gave it a try. I didn't use it long, I will admit, but I did give it long enough where I feel like I gave it enough of a try. So what it does is it basically activates as a third poison. When you apply one of your other poisons, it just automatically applies leeching poison for the same duration. Yeah, so you're at max level with better gear, you know, a little more balanced stats. This might work. I don't know if it was me. I don't know if it was a spell. It wasn't working how you know, I was watching my health and it wasn't going up. And I'm just not sure why. I'm not sure if it just doesn't work with the finishing moves, or like I said, if it was me or if it's the ability. I mean, 12% is pretty decent amount. So I thought, oh, this could work. Rather than, because cheat death you really don't use that often. It's kind of an emergency ability. I took it thinking like PvP, or you know, with a rare or something, you don't want to get down to that last little bit and then not be able to finish them off. So, internal bleeding. This is probably one of my favorite passive ability combos. Allows your kidney shot to deal overtime, or allows your kidney shot to deal bleed damage. So it stuns and puts a dot on them. So not too bad. Iron Wire increases the duration of Garrote. Silence effect by 3 seconds. Enemy silenced by Garrote deal 15% increased. Deal 50% reduced damage for 8 seconds. Not bad. Prey on the weak. Enemies disabled by your cheap shot or kidney shot take 10% increased damage from all sources. So, you know, they're all three are passives. So then I'm thinking, okay, well, what increases? What makes an ability I already have better? So, internal bleeding, most things can be silenced. Some, like Paladin to PvP, they have the one, I think it's either a shield or a hand. If they have that on them, they can't, and occasionally you will find a rare or a boss that can't. Most bosses can't be. Other than that, with Prey on the weak, as I said, I don't use cheap shot really that often. I probably wouldn't use kidney shot as often if it didn't do damage, just for whatever reason. So if I had to pick something else, I'd probably pick Iron Wire, because it increases an ability I already have. So with Prey on the weak, I'd feel like I'm not using my abilities enough to get a benefit off it. I think I've used about all three of these. I'm not sure about Iron Wire, because I think it's been a couple different places, but I Prey on the weak, and I know internal bleeding I have. I seem to remember, I think on Outlaw, I think it's Dirty Tricks and this are on the same tier, and I think I've used both at different times. So to me, this was kind of a simple choice. You take internal bleeding. So works really well out kind of in the world. Even if they can't be stunned, I've noticed this on Outlaw with, I think it's Between the Eyes, does kind of the same thing. Does damage and it's supposed to stun. I have noticed with that that even if you can't stun them, it will still do damage. I haven't noticed quite the same thing with internal bleeding. If I find out that whatever I'm fighting can't be stunned, I don't notice the dot going up, so I don't know if the spell doesn't work at all or if it's doing damage some other way or something. I'm not sure. So that's kind of I hadn't quite been able to figure that out yet. You rarely come across something that can't be stunned. So, Venom Rush, Mutilate, Refunds, 5 energy when used against a poison target. Toxic Blade. Twist your blades into your target's wounds, causing your bleed effects on them to bleed out 100% faster. So, Toxic Blade, I don't need another ability. It does increase nature damage, which my poisons count as nature damage. And the damage Toxic Blade does is nature damage. That's physical damage. It's bleed damage. That's nature damage. So it would increase in venom, which makes sense because your poisons are nature damage. Yeah. So it's, again, 9-second duration on a 25-second cooldown. So just kind of coordination. To me, the cooldown's too long for what it does. I find what I've noticed about how I tend to play is I tend to rely on certain abilities, and if they're not available somewhat regularly, I get frustrated and then I don't use them. Because I'm thinking, well, I want to save this to use it at the right time, and then I just never end up using it. So Venom Rush I kind of took by default, but also because Mutilate costs so much. Refunding 5 energy, it may not sound like a lot. However, when you're spending 50 to use an ability, you want to get back as much as possible. So, yeah, I'm not sure about this. I've thought about taking something else. Like I said, everything kind of works right now, so I hadn't really been overthinking it too much. So, and then on the last tier, you get to choose an AoE ability. I started out using Poison Bomb. And then I did a dungeon and didn't have really any AoE. I kept using Fan of Knives. I kept ending up with full combo points. And I don't know that's really practical to go through and select each target and put a bleed on them. So I took, and that only had a 4% chance. Poison Bomb only has a 4% chance per combo point. So up to, I think it was 12. No. 16. No. 24. There we go. I can count. I promise you. So between a 4 and 20 some percent chance to put an AoE under the target, which seemed really good. Crimson Tempest used to be, at least on combat, I think it was, used to be a baseline ability. I remember it used to be your 85th. It was like your 85th talent, your last talent you would get, or ability. I shouldn't say talent. Your ability. So yeah, I mean it gives me. I can use Fan and Knives. I took Hidden Blades. And because I like the idea of it, something that passively recharges and kind of, increases and decreases, similar to I think it's Incantator's Hands, the Mage ability. I use that on my mage, and it works really well. So that was kind of what I was thinking. I was like, oh, okay, because you really don't use Fan of Knives too often unless you're like trying to look for another rogue in a battleground or something. So Crimson Tempest just gives me a little more. I wanted something that gave me a little more control over AoE damage. It does apply itself as a bleed, and it does apply your poisons. I kind of went back and forth. I kept swapping out Poison Bomb for Crimson Tempest, trying to see. And I just settled on Crimson Tempest because now in such a short time, it did not take very long. I'm used to it being there. So out of habit, I go to use it now, and yeah. Plus, with your energy, you use one ability. You use an ability once, and it's putting dots on multiple targets, so you don't have to keep reapplying things. You can just kind of put that on so that everybody's, there's bleed damage, and then you can just go one by one through and do direct damage. So, yeah, haven't really, damage-wise, it's about the same. So, if I had a choice, since I really don't have, I only have the one ability. I usually like to have at least two. Try to round it out, try to have a variety, just because you never know what your situation's going to be. So, yeah. So there you go, folks. There is state of for Assassination Rogue. Hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.